Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're gonna do best guns for the 2023 apocalypse. Okay, so I did this video last year, and I've got some great news for you guys. The guns from last year to this year did not change. Okay, so the same guns I showed you last year as the best guns for the 2022 apocalypse remain the best guns for the 2023 apocalypse. And they've pretty much been like this for a very long time, which should give you guys a lot of confidence in these guns. Okay, let's start off with the number one gun, which again should not surprise anyone. AR-15. Okay, so it does not have to be like a super expensive AR-15. It could be a Palmetto, it could be a Radical. I've tested a lot of these budget ARs. Most of them all shoot about one, with match grade ammo, right? With these 77 grain match kings, they all get about 1 inch at 100 yards. Okay, so basically, barrel and rifling technology has pretty much been very settled at this point. It would, when it comes to like building machines, right, that make these barrels and do the rifling, it would probably cost them more money to make a machine to make a barrel that's not so accurate. Okay, so I guess I'm thinking that the same barrels that they put on these budget guns are the same barrels that go on the high-end guns. And like I said, I've tested lots of them. They all get about 1 inch, right, with these match grade ammunition. And then if with the 18-inch barrels, I get like half-inch groups at 100 yards. Okay. Number one gun, AR-15. Get a railed one like this. You're gonna, most important thing, optic, right? Shooting is a seeing thing. Get one of these Holosun 510Cs, these big window optics. These are really ideal for basically moving and shooting, right? It allows you to be able to, stay on target. You could be in a moving vehicle. Really easy to stay on target with these big window optics. Get a magnifier behind it. This gives the gun, that a capability to get all the way out to 500 yards. And then with these 77 grain match grade ammo, you can push well past 600 yards, even approaching 700 yards. Okay, so the ammunition is really what gives these guns their full capability. Okay? Now, granted, you're not going to be able to buy thousands and thousands of rounds of this 77 grain match grade ammo. So what you want to do is get something like 500 rounds of this, and then get something at least 4,000 rounds of the cheaper stuff, right? So of the 5.5, even if it's steel case, get a couple of thousand rounds of the steel case, get some green tips in there. You want to have a minimal of 4,000 rounds, right? This way you got 2,000 rounds for training, and practice, and then you got 2,000 rounds in reserve. Okay. Now, of that 2,000 round reserve, you want to have at least 500 rounds of this match grade ammo that gives this gun the capability to get out there past 500 yards. Okay, I've had this one out to 550 yards. So optic, magnifier, right? And these things, I think the gun was, I think, something like $500. This Holosun 510C, that comes in at about $300. Magnifier, I bought it at $200. Now they're coming in at about $150. Okay, you got to have backup sights. Okay, these are the expensive ones. These are the Magpul ones, the low profile ones. Again, these are backup sights. A lot of people bitch about how I have them in the front here and how they're close together. With this setup here, when I power down this optic, I'm still able to see I'm able to hit targets all the way out to 100 yards, even with this close setup over here. And it doesn't have to stay, like if my optics were to fail, I would move this and then just re-zero the rifle. Okay, so basically right now this is just a parking spot for this, for these backup sites, where it still works, and if down the road that the optic were to fail, I would just move it. But at least it's on the gun, and I don't have to go looking for it, right? It's on the gun, so that's why I keep it on the gun. This is just a temporary parking spot, but where it's also useful, where I can flip these up, and I can get hits out to 100 yards, okay? And also a light, okay? Now, I have other rifles where I put the light on the side, right, you know, with the pressure pads. I really prefer the pistol lights on top, okay? It doesn't interfere with my vision. When I look through here, basically that just looks like an A2 post, okay? So I can see over it. I like the fact that I can take it off easy. So in the daytime, if I want to lighten up the rifle, I can remove this. Or at night, if I want to lighten up the rifle, I can remove this. So that's one of the nice things that I like about this setup. This can come off easy and go back on easy. This can come off easy and go back on easy when I need it back on there, right? So that's why I prefer the magnifiers versus like the LPVOs. Even though I've got plenty of LPVOs, and I really like, if I know I'm going to be out there like from 300 to 600 yards, sure, I'll pull out a rifle with an LPVO with a 10x magnification. But for SHTF, I prefer this setup over here, right? We got optic, magnifier, backup sights, light, sling, right? We need the sling for rifle retention. This sling here is from Brash Tactical. I got it from Amazon. I really like it. It's like 20 bucks. It's a fast loop sling. I've got a number of these, right? And you can basically, and then if I want to loosen up, I put my thumb here, pull this back, and I can easily retrieve the rifle like that. Okay, so I really like these Brash Tactical $20, $25 slings. So this is again the number one gun for the 2023 apocalypse. It was on the list last year, same way. I recommend it again. The other thing I have here, I do have the extended charging handle. I had the extended charging handle because with the magnifier on here, it can be a little bit hard to get to, okay? However, if you take the magnifier off, these things here can kind of snag on shit. So you may decide that you don't want one that sticks out so much like this, and that's fine, but just be aware that these charging handles are very convenient until they start snagging on stuff, then they become a pain in the ass, okay? So this is a training gun that I use all the time, and it just makes sense for me to add that charging handle on there. I still have the original ones that came with it, the $10 ones. So maybe in in the actual apocalypse, if I see it snagging, maybe I would switch this out, for one that's a little bit more, that sticks out a little bit less, especially in the summertime, right? In the wintertime, you're wearing like a thick jacket, so you're not going to feel this point in your stomach so much. But in the summertime, you do kind of feel it a little bit. Okay, so this is the number one rifle, the AR-15. Doesn't have to be an expensive one. In fact, I definitely recommend, instead of getting like one expensive AR-15, get 2 or 3 of these budget ones, okay? And the reason is you can have like the $3,000 AR-15, top of the line, best AR they ever made. If it gets run over by a truck, it is worthless. It is useless, okay? So it makes a lot more sense, especially for the apocalypse, to have lots of these budget ARs that are easily replaceable. If one breaks, you just pull out another one. So definitely recommend having lots of cheap guns rather than like one expensive gun, especially when we're at the point now with AR-15 technology where even the cheap guns are highly, highly reliable, okay? So the gun is not enough. Make sure you got the ammunition. Like I said, 4,000 rounds minimal, 5.56. You get yourself at least 500 rounds of this, 4,000 rounds total minimal, and I'm not saying just stop there, try to build that up to 10,000 plus, but get at least 4,000 rounds and get yourself some of these 77 grain match grades, because that basically turns this rifle into a marksman rifle, right? Into a quote unquote sniper rifle, okay? It's the ammunition that makes the difference, not the gun so much. We're not this stage in the game, right? Because even the cheap guns are like really, really accurate. Okay? Now, one of the things I do is, we're talking about magazines, right? Lancer magazines. I've been using these now for several years. They are the best, okay? I've never thrown out one of these. I have every one I've ever bought. They're all still in operation. If you guys look on the ground over here, there's like thousands of rounds over here. So with all the shooting that I do, traveling around the different ranges, training people, I mean, I've never had a magazine fail on me, okay? And that's for people occasionally dropping them and stuff. Now, I don't do like destructive testing on these, but just with normal wear and tear, I haven't lost a single one of these. For my set, so these are the 30-round ones. For the match grade ammo, I like the 20-round ones, okay? So the two reasons why I like this: number one, I can basically, with the 20-round magazines, which are obviously shorter, I'm going to put all my 77 grain bullets in here, and I know that these shorties are for distance shooting only, okay? So if I need to take a distance shot, I would pull out, I would remove this magazine, right? And I would put this one in there because I know that these shorties have all my match grade ammunition, okay? So that's one way I would use it. The other way is because these are shorter, if you take a prone position or a benched position, right, this doesn't hit the ground or the table, right? So you can get lower. So for that distance shooting, I find that the shorter mags are very useful, right? Because they don't hit the table, or the ground if I'm shooting prone, okay? So magazines are very important. Now, so that's your number one gun, right? But the number two, right? And the reason why it's not really the number two. I'm going to come back to number three, right? Number two is going to be a Glock or a Glock clone. Now, this happens to be a P80 that I built myself. I don't care who made it, whether you made it yourself or if you bought it for Glock, okay? It has to be a Glock, all right? Because both of these guns, both the AR-15 and the Glock Gen 3s, the patents have expired, okay? So that means that there's lots of aftermarket parts out there. So you want guns that the patents have expired, right? Like ARs and Glocks. So you don't have to go back to the manufacturer to buy parts, and you can stockpile parts. So there's three criteria for choosing a gun, right? Number one, the gun has to be reliable, right? And by reliable, basically we mean military and police tested, okay? Because especially like with military guns that the military has used, they're going to use them in some of the most extreme conditions, and not in just one localized area, but around the world, under lots of different circumstances, situations. So the guns, get a chance to be really tested. Like I do lots of shooting here, right? I shoot in the summertime, I shoot in the wintertime, but for example, I don't shoot in desert conditions, right? Because I don't have a desert here, right? So I don't shoot in dry, arid conditions, okay? My elevation here is about 2,000 feet up. I don't shoot at sea level, okay? I don't shoot at an elevation of 5,000 feet, right? But I know that the military has tested these guns in those elevations, okay? So that's why you want guns that are police and military tested, so that they've tested them under the most, all over the world under all sorts of different conditions. So going back to number two gun, it's going to be your Glock clone, right? Glock. It has to be a Glock MOS, right? It has to be able to take an optic, okay? Again, shooting is a seeing thing. The seeing part is the most important part. And you want to have, the optic that you want to have is the Holosun ACSS, right? The Holosun 507 ACSS. Let's see if I can get this to focus. So basically, it's got that big outer circle that guides you to the center so that you can find that arrow, which is slightly out of focus, I think. See if I get it to the table here. Maybe it'll focus there. See if I bring it close. So when you bring it close, you start seeing the whole thing, right? But when you're further out, the outer circle disappears. And basically, you just use the edge of the outer circle to guide you to the center, and you put the arrow on target, okay? So you got your backup sights there. So you got in the front, basically you got the tritium in the front. All right, so you got to have your backup sights with the glow in the dark front sight, but still, the optic, the optic is going to make you a better shooter. Okay, you want, especially when you want to test your optics, don't just test them with perfect presentation. Put it in your left hand. I've done lots of videos where I got it in my left hand and I'm shooting all these, weird positions. That's when you see the difference that the optic makes, okay? So, like I said, you want it to be Glock or a Glock clone. It's got to be able to take this, the optic. You want it to be able to take just standard Glock magazines. And again, I'll tell people, get 4,000 rounds. Now here's the thing: you're not likely going to shoot 4,000 rounds through the pistol, but it kind of leads into the number 3 gun that I'm going to tell you guys about. Number 3 gun is going to be a 9mm AR. Okay, so this sort of replaced the AK-47, because for many years the AK-47 was on this list. Now that's still a great gun, okay, but the reason why the AK kind of fell off the list is number one, they've become a lot more expensive. They've been harder to import. The parts are not so standard, right? So depending on where you get your AK from, the firing pin from one may not work in the other. If you change the bolt out, the gun has to be head spaced. So you can't just change out the bolt the same way you easily change it out on an AR, right? Where you just take out one bolt, throw in another one. With an AK, when you change the bolt out, you have to head space it by moving. Basically, you have to basically move the barrel back and forth in order to get the right head spacing. Again, it's not something I want to deal with. And a lot of people say that, hey, you don't have to worry about any of that stuff because AKs never break. I have broken AKs, okay? Now, the parts that I broke were minor, easy to replace, but all the same, with enough shooting, it took about 10,000 rounds, but I did break parts, okay? If you have something serious that needs to be changed, you got rivets that you gotta pull out. It's not like ARs where you got like pins and stuff. All right, so that's the reason why the AK fell off the list. Oh, and the other thing is, with AKs, they really don't come optic ready. I mean, they take that, they had, a lot of them have that, the ability to take the side mount. I have found that unless you get like a really good one, those side mounts don't hold zero very well. So basically what I've had to do with my AKs is I've had to upgrade the rails so that I can put the optic over the gas tube. And when I did that, yes, I can hit 2 inches at 100 yards. But the point is that I had to spend like an extra, I don't know, $150, $200 just to get the gun to a point where it is now optic ready, okay? So that's why the AK fell off the list. Well, the other reason why it fell off the list is because ARs have become just so reliable, right? Because, I don't know, about 15 years ago, people were questioning the reliability of ARs. What we didn't know at the time was the reason why ARs were sometimes not reliable was because of those cheap aluminum magazines, right? Sometimes the feed lips would get bent, and that would cause the gun to jam up, okay? Then PMAG came along with the, with the PMAG, and then they fixed the magazine problem, and then all of a sudden the AR-15s became extremely reliable, and now with the Lancers, they are like super reliable, okay? So having done lots of shooting with ARs and AK-47s, I would say that both guns are about equally reliable at this point, okay? So going back to gun number 3, the 9mm AR. The reason why this went on the list is because this takes the same ammunition and the same magazines as the pistol, as your Glock pistol, right? So the same magazine that goes in that goes in this, same ammunition. So this now becomes a very versatile gun, okay? You have the ability to add all the stuff that's on that gun, on this gun, backup sights, lights, magnifiers, all, sling. So this is a very, the gun is very flexible like that, right? So you've got the ammunition, you've got the magazines, you've got the magazines, right? You got the ammunition, you got the magazines. So it makes sense to have the gun as well, okay? Especially when it's so flexible that you can take the stuff, some of the things off of that and put it on that. Now, I mentioned this the last time I did this video, in an apocalypse type of situation, a lot of people think that they're going to be deer hunting, okay? The deers are going to become extinct overnight, okay? What you will most likely be hunting is wild dogs, okay? Because the dogs are going to start, the dogs and the cats, they're going to start eating the corpses, and they're going to start multiplying, okay? So dogs are really good would be really good at surviving in an apocalypse type of situation. Obviously, it's not going to be the little toy dogs, right? It's going to be more of the wolf-like dogs. But they're gonna feed, they're gonna multiply, and that is highly likely that that is what you're going to be hunting. So 9mm, especially out of a rifle, is very suitable for hunting dog-sized animals, for hunting basically wild dogs. Okay, so that's a way I would want to use this gun. I would rather use the 9mm ammo than use my 5.56, which has a more of a self-defense type of capability at longer distances, right? With the 9, I'd rather be using up my 9mm, before I start digging into my 5.56. Okay, so that's the reason why the 9mm AR came on this list. It's just I find it extremely versatile. A lot of the parts that go, like the trigger group, a lot of the parts that go into your standard AR-15 will go into your 9mm AR. Okay, so yeah, it's just there's just so much commonality between these two guns, right? That it almost doesn't make sense not to have this gun. Now the other thing about this gun is a 9mm AR with a 16-inch barrel is quieter than a 5.56 suppressed. Okay, so your standard 9mm AR, okay, is basically, you can almost think of it as a suppressed 5.56, because like if you're gonna, a lot of times people talk about using, let's say, like a 300 blackout, with subsonic ammunition. Well, if you're shooting subsonic ammunition at, out of a 300 blackout, you're essentially, the energy that you're going to get is the same as a 45 ACP, right? So the energy that the 9mm has out of the 16-inch barrel over here is 450 foot-pounds, okay? So, so which is the same as if you took rifle ammunition and slowed it down and made the bullet heavier in order to get it to be subsonic. So instead of buying more expensive subsonic rifle ammo and getting a suppressor, we can skip that step and just get a 9mm AR. The energy coming out of it is going to be the same as if you had a 5.56 or a 300 blackout for the most part. So it's just a cheaper way to get yourself a quiet rifle. So that's another reason why the 9mm AR is on this table. I think it's a very versatile option. Okay. Now, number four is actually not a gun. It is a 22 conversion bolt. Right, this one's CMMG 22 conversion bolt for your AR-15. So the bolt that's in here comes out, okay, and you replace it with this, and then you instead of using these magazines, okay, you use this magazine over here, and you put 22 long rifle in there, and now you got yourself an excellent varmint gun. You can hunt small animals, like small rodents and stuff like that, rabbits, stuff like that. A lot of times people will tell you that, hey, the best way to catch small animals to trap them, sure, but hey, you got this option too, right? 22 conversion bolt. This will also give you the ability to practice and train, right? Because during the actual apocalypse, you may not want to use your 5.56 ammo or even your 9mm ammo for training purposes, right? Because you may never be able to buy any again in your whole life. They might never manufacture anymore, right? But with the 22s, like, you can stockpile now like 30,000 rounds, 50,000 rounds, right? So you can, because it's compact, and you can, with this 22 conversion bolt, you can practice with the 22 long rifle throughout the entire apocalypse, right? You can train your kids, that kind of stuff, right? You can train the next generation, right, on the 22 long rifles. So that's why the 22 conversion bolt is on this table. That's like that's basically gun number 4, right? Gun number 4 is your 5.56 AR with a 22 conversion bolt in it, okay? And gun number 5 is some type of a shotgun, okay? Now I've got here the Lynx 12. The reason why I have it, basically this is an AK-47 shotgun, magazine fed. This one's got about 15,000 rounds on it. Again, it'll take an optic. Shooting is a scene thing. Now this is not a self-defense gun, okay? This is basically a hunting gun, right? Because with this, you know, you can use bird shot to hunt small birds, or you know, or buckshot to hunt stuff like, you know, larger birds like turkey or whatever. So this is a hunting gun. Now, if you don't have an AK-47 shotgun, if you want to substitute in a pump, that's fine. Don't assume that pumps are more reliable or easier to use. Even people that I've, you know, that are very familiar with guns, when I put them under stress, they will often jam up the pumps. They'll short stroke them. Okay. Also, don't think that the pumps are more reliable. A lot of times people will say that they're more reliable, but they don't do the high round counts that I do. I have broken a couple of pumps, which were, you know, fixed under warranty. Which is not to say I haven't broken some of these guns. I've got two Sega 12s that I retired at 30,000 rounds because the bolt carrier cracked on them at 30,000 rounds. And then I also I broke the bolt itself in one of these links. I think that was around 11,000 rounds. Okay, so these are up to 15,000 rounds. So don't assume that any gun is not going to break. Okay, all machines break, which is the reason why when we look at shotguns, I'm like, okay, these are basically hunting guns. Okay, they're not self-defense guns. I don't care if you're using a pump or using AK shotgun. These are hunting guns. The fact that they can take, you know, different types of 12 gauge ammunition, birdshot, buckshot, slugs, it gives you that versatility, which is why it's worth having this gun, because of that versatility. Now, shotgun shells are very heavy, okay? You know, if it's not for the price, but for the weight, you're pretty much going to be limited to maybe 2,000 rounds, 3,000 rounds, because it's heavy and it's bulky, and, you know, shotgun shells take up lots of space, okay? So even myself, I mean, I do lots of shotgun shooting. You can see the shells all over the ground here. I mean, I don't think I've ever had more than 4,000 rounds at a time, as far as shotgun shells, because they just take up so much space, you know, and it's heavy. You know, if I put more than 4,000 rounds on my shelves are going to break, okay? So that's why I, you know, 9mm 5.56, much lighter ammunition. You can have, you know, 10,000 rounds, and, you know, it doesn't take up as much space. It's not as heavy. Obviously, the weight's going to get up there, but, you know, it's very economical in terms of weight and space, okay? So those are my 2023 Apocalypse guns, okay? Number one, AR-15. Number two, Glock. Number three, your 9mm AR. There's a Palmetto, okay? I got several of these. I've done thousands and thousands of rounds. They do beat up the gun, okay? They do beat up the gun. I got, in order for the gun to be reliable, you want to put an 8-ounce buffer weight in there. Because before I put the 8-ounce buffer weight, I used to break hammer pins. You know, extractors are going to break. The nice thing is the extractor that goes in this gun is the same as the extractor that goes in your regular AR. However, the blowbacks will work without an extractor, right? Because there's no rotation. It will work without an extractor. It's just that you can't, like, if you want to clear the gun, right? If the extractor breaks, you have to point the gun up in order to in order for the cartridge to fall out. If you point it down and you go like this with a broken extractor, there's nothing there to pull it out. So I know, I've done videos on this. I've got lots of experience with broken extractors on 9mm ARs. You should definitely get yourself lots of extra extractors. And lots of extra firing pins, and the firing pin springs, right? Those are the parts that are going to break on your 9mm AR. Okay, for your standard AR, get yourself a lost and broken parts kit. Okay, they sell them. It has all the parts that are likely to break. But on top of that, get yourself just an extra bolt carrier, full bolt carrier, or at least a complete bolt. Okay. Because all the parts that are going to break are mostly going to be in your bolt, or they're going to be in your trigger group, okay? Because the trigger group, the AR trigger groups are basically rated for about 5,000 rounds. I usually get up to about 8,000 rounds. By 10,000 rounds, I've broken a trigger group, or I've broken some part in the bolt, right? So those are the parts that are going to break on your AR. You're gonna wear out your trigger group. When you wear out the trigger group, what usually happens is when you're shooting the gun locks up. A lot of times, if you flip the safety, if you're in the fire position, put your safety on, put your safety off, that will unlock it. Okay. The other way that the trigger group will start failing is that you'll start getting like 2 and 3 round bursts. Okay. Because basically your disconnect is wearing out. So yeah, just have extra trigger groups. And then as far as you're gonna wear out your firing pins. I broke several firing pins. Gas rings you're gonna wear out. Extractors are gonna. Although I sometimes they'll break. I don't go through too many extractors on ARs. But have extra extractors. But it's usually the trigger group and the parts inside the bolt that are gonna break. Okay. With the Glocks. What do I break on this? I got one factory Glock that went up to 75,000 rounds before anything broke, and the thing that broke was the trigger spring. Okay, and then it's funny. It went 75,000 rounds the first time, and then the trigger spring broke again 20,000 rounds later at 80. So it broke at like 95,000 rounds. So on the Glock Gen 3s, the trigger spring will break. The firing pin head break. What else? I think that's mostly the parts that have broken on the factory Glocks. If you've got aftermarkets like this, do yourself a favor. Just get a complete lower parts kit and a complete slide parts kit. This way you've got all the extra parts of anything that could possibly break. And then on top of that, get yourself some firing pins and get yourself some trigger springs. Okay. So the nice thing about Glocks is they don't have too many parts. So if you get yourself a good lower parts kit, a good slide parts kit, you've got lots of extra parts. On the 9mm ARs, again, the parts that broke was the trigger group. A lot of these 9mm ARs, even though they're supposed to work with mil-spec trigger groups, they sometimes don't work as well. Palmetto does make specific trigger groups that are fine-tuned for their AR, so I recommend that you actually get some backup trigger groups specifically from Palmetto that are designed for the 9mm ARs. However, in the pinch, you can just throw in a standard mil-spec AR and it'll work fairly reliable. So you're gonna break that. You can break firing pins. You're gonna break firing pin springs. With the 22 conversion bolts, the part that I have broken is the firing pin and the firing pin spring. Okay, I've broken both of those parts. So get yourself lots of extras of those. That's the only thing that's really going to break on this firing pin spring. And I said on the Lynx 12, I have broken on the Sega 12. I broke the bolt carriers. That was a weaker design. On the Lynx 12, they improved upon it, and basically I broke one bolt. And now the reason why I broke the bolt, I did a video on this, is I think that the bolt itself was had an imperfection in it. Okay, so because I have 2 of them that had 15,000 rounds on it, and it only broke on one. And then when I examined it, I think that the reason why the bolt tail broke is because the channel that it was sitting in was not straight. Okay, so I think that was a bit of a fluke. But the point is, here's the thing: it's going to be hard for you guys to get replacement parts for whatever shotgun you have. It won't be so easy to get 22 replacement parts. You gotta get them now if you're gonna get them. But ARs and Glocks, they're out there. So that's why number 1 AR-15, number 2 Glock. The parts are out there. The knowledge to fix the guns is out there. So that's why they're number 1 and number 2. So thanks for watching. I'll talk to you all soon.